forbid you are sitting in this place saying, I don't care about legacy. You need to care about it because somebody's got to live in the life you have. You are passing something down whether you want to or not.
How do we build resilience? What does it mean to have a mindset that has mastered resilience? I believe this to be more true than not. Resilience cannot be built without hardship, trials, tribulations, going through tough times, facing adversity, being outside of what would be considered the comfort zone. I like what Helen Keller says, character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved. Martin Luther King says this, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenges and controversy. Hey, you guys, welcome to the Mindset Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Sam Velasquez. I am thrilled you are here today. And I was thinking about this through personal experience, that it is so important that we build resilience. And I wanted to look it up because I think it's extremely important when we're talking about words that we understand what they really mean, even though we tend to bring so many different meanings to the table because of our experience. And I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong, but I want to make sure we understand what is resilience. And it's very simple. According to Webster's 1828 dictionary, it says this, that resilience is the act of leaping or springing back, or the act of rebounding as the resilience of a ball or of sound. You know, and it's interesting. Let me say it one more time. Resilience is the act of leaping or springing back, or the act of rebounding as the resilience of a ball or of sound. You know, another thing I was thinking about was kind of like a rubber band. When we stretch a rubber band, it is under, an immense amount of tension, and it is being stretched beyond its, comfortable limitations per se. And it's only happening because something is pulling against it. It is stretching it beyond its kind of natural state of rest. But what's amazing is it has great resilience in that when we let go, it bounces back or springs back to its natural resting place, its natural state of being per se, as an example. However, my inspiration for jumping into this when it comes to mindset mastery and mastering resilience, I do really believe and stand on what I said when I opened up, is that we cannot master resilience without hardship, without getting uncomfortable, without being in places of inconvenience at times. But here's what I also know to be true. When we dive into this, I want you to be encouraged to think about what that is for you. Your experiences of having to build resilience may be different. I guarantee there may be relatability, but there will not be, perfect, alignment in that what you've gone through isn't exactly what I've gone through. And while we can relate, it's not for comparison. It is for a better understanding, and hopefully so we can have compassion and empathy and all those things towards one another. And I'm only laying that foundation because I think that what I'm about to share with you can sometimes be grandized. And I learned this lesson from a gentleman who was 98 years old and a World War II and Vietnam veteran who I briefly met for a short period of time while in the hospital from injuries I'd sustained while being overseas. And he simply shared a story with me, and I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but however, the comparison to his story to mine and what I experienced in the moment of combat seemed astronomically crazy to me, that he would assume that he can relate, or that I would be able to relate to him, because in my mind's eye, in my opinion, based on experience, the resilience he was expressing to me was far greater than the resilience I would have thought I expressed. And he gently and firmly at the same time reminded me that our experiences are our own, They are not for comparison, nor are they for us to fully understand, because they are our stories. However, they are for us to share so we can ultimately encourage someone, or as the scripture in the Bible says, that iron sharpens iron. As iron sharpens iron, so another man lifts the countenance of another. And all that to say, that's why I'm going to bring this story to the table. And it is a story of resilience. It is a time that I don't wish on anybody, but I do believe people will relate to it. And I believe that you will recall times where you had to go through moments of adversity, trials, tribulation, and all of that. And in the end, I believe it has built the resilience in me and in you that can be beneficial. And it only helps us then build a mindset that can continue to master resilience. And, the fascinating thing is we're always going to be facing trials and tribulations and tough moments and times, and it's really how we respond. And so resilience is the ability to respond in such a way that we can leap or spring back into the natural state of rest and or peace within ourselves amidst the storm or even after the storm, and not let it necessarily take us out to the point where when there's so much tension, sometimes we, for the metaphorical example of the rubber band, snap, and we don't want to do that. However, I can recall a time while I was in the Marine Corps and was assigned to my first permanent duty station, which was on the East Coast in Camp Lejeune. And upon arrival, I was not prepared, nor could I have necessarily been prepared or known fully who or what I was getting into in the context of the unit I was assigned to. Long story short, that was a wake-up call for me to understand how the abuse of power based on rank structure could be prevalent in any circumstance, not just in the military. However, the military uses, if you're unfamiliar, a rank structure. And with the ranking structure, as you attain a higher rank, you tend to gain more responsibility, and not only that, a responsibility to steward and overlook the ranks below you. And you get given certain powers. However, when used inappropriately and not in the best interest of the whole, as we all know, in many scenarios, it can go extremely bad. And in my case, this is one of those times where I would attribute this experience to have built some of the greatest resilience in me that I was unaware that I had. However, how it happened isn't what I would want for anyone else. And in the process, in the short time that I was there, within the first week or so, it was very evident that we had a group of young men and leaders who just hadn't matured either. So I don't hold it against them. However, it was an abuse of power. And, I was inspired to bring this story to the table because I was writing a email sequence for building habits, and one of those was just building resilience. And so I shared this story very brief and vaguely within an email. And so I thought, man, this would be a great story to bring to the table. So I'm sharing it with you. However, I'll be brief also in the sense that what would happen was it turned into the abuse of not only power, but physical abuse, to the point where I decided, maybe in my stubbornness and immaturity too, right, to not allude to the fact that I was perfect in some way. However, my heart, I believe, was always aligned in the right place. And that was to present myself in a way that was to be courageous and stand up against what I believe to be poor leadership, and at the expense of all of the guys my rank and below, I was not going to tolerate it. And it came with great risk, and it came with a great level of, abuse and different elements that came along with me standing up. However, while building resilience, I was building trust. I was building rapport with everyone my rank and below. And I say it's a great risk because, you know what? The wrong person could have seen what I was doing and decided that it was not good. And I could have lost rank. I could have lost pay. I could have been kicked out of the Marine Corps. And the adversity side that I had to face, the trials, the challenges, the things that came my way personally, right? I'm going to give you the physical side of what came. But because I knew my rights and I was operating within them, it frustrated the leadership so bad at times that they could not maintain their composure. In their trial, tribulation, if that was me for them, they didn't focus on resilience, and instead they were the rubber band that snapped. The bad thing for me was when that rubber band snapped, it equated to, at times, and I'm not exaggerating this, I'd been punched in the face probably 4 or 5 times in a short period of time, on different occasions, when those metaphorical rubber bands snapped, guys who were in a position over me but didn't have the self-control and the resilience to work through it. It equated to being kicked, both in the stomach and in my private parts. It equated to me having to dig graves. A standard grave, if you're unaware, is 3 feet wide and it's 6 feet long and 6 feet deep. I dug 2 of those in a short period of time. When I say short period of time, I'm talking about months. So it was months of just going through what was at times, for the lack of better words and description, a hellhole of an experience. But I stayed true and trusted it would be worth it in the end, that it was going to prove worth it. And even if I came out on the bottom, it would hopefully transpire to a greater benefit and whole for the guys that were my rank and below. And it's tough to be in a situation where, in a sense, the majority of your leadership hates you so much, but there's nothing they can do about it, from a judicial standpoint or legally, or, as far as what we fell under as the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They couldn't punish me because they didn't have grounds, but they could try to break my will. And that's what they did for months. And I decided I was going to stand up to it. And in the end, long story short, of course, it all worked out. And when I say it all worked out, eventually I acquired a rank, and then eventually I acquired more rank, and eventually I outranked every single one of those guys. And instead of holding it against them, I befriended them, and I don't want to sound like a saint. It was very hard. But over time, months and years, I befriended them, and we were able to together build a much more resilient unit and team and work together and see the value. But my point is this: there will be times in our life, and while that is a unique experience to me, I believe there are many people who go through those types of situations, and they may not be physical, they may be emotional, they may be spiritual, they may be, somebody who lets us down, or maybe it's a financial hurdle, right? So I don't want to narrow this down to a physical thing where you were beat up or beat down, or maybe for you that is the case. Maybe you had to go through something at a young age where you had to deal with abuse from a parent or, a family member. And if you did, number one, I apologize, I can't apologize for them, but I apologize in the sense that I'm sorry that you went through that. Nobody should have to go through that. Nobody should have to go through what I went through. But it's not that it happened to me, it happened for me. It's the mindset and reframing I take, because in that, as miserable as it was, I kept showing resilience. I would, to the best of my ability, leap back up and spring back forward. And it wasn't that I was a trial or tribulation for them. It's that they despised and hated how much I bounced back, because there was nothing they could do about that. And why I'm bringing this to the table is because I think that in today's culture, today's society, and many experiences people have had over their lifetime, is there will always be something that comes at us. When I think about those moments, they seem like some of the worst moments of my life. However, fast forward down the road, there's times where I think this feels worse than that. And the truth is, it's not a matter of is it worse or is it not as bad as something else. It's just simply, it is a moment in time where we have to face trials, face adversity, and it tests our character and how well we're going to express resilience. And remember, resilience is the act of leaping or springing back. It's the act of rebounding. It doesn't mean that we don't get beat down, or we don't get tired, or that we don't fail, or that we don't go through challenges and we do it maybe less than gracefully, or we do it with little to no character if we're being honest, but it's really not that matters as much as how are we going to respond from a resilient standpoint? Will we bounce back? You know, the example of the definition of resilience says as the resilience of a ball or of a sound. And when you think about a ball, and if you've ever thrown a ball up against a wall, you know, with the trajectory and force that we can throw it, it also hits that wall. But what's fascinating is we're doing it because we want it to come back to us. And because it's designed to bounce back, because it's designed to hit something with force and not just explode, it does bounce back because it's how it was created, it's how it was designed. And my encouragement to us is to understand we too are built that same way. We are built with an equal level of resilience that God has given us to be able to bounce back. It's not so we can ignore and suppress and shove down, you know, what has happened to us. It's not to judge whether it's right or wrong. It is so we can, regardless, bounce back. Because sometimes maybe we're on the other end of it. Maybe we're the one who's creating the trials and the storms for someone. Maybe we're the one who's testing someone's character and resilience. And so we have to be aware of both sides of that at the same time. However, my point is God has created us to be resilient. He has created us to bounce back. He has given us strength to bounce back. He's given us the ability to, through adversity and trials. And so in order to build resilience, in order to have a mindset that can master resilience, remember this: we cannot do it without having to go through some sort of discomfort, some sort of trial and tribulation. We have to go through a certain level of stretching and tension in order to build resilience. And we have to remember that our original state is to be peaceful and restful and discernful and aware of who we really are. And it's why the rubber band, like I said in the beginning, can just come back to its natural state and resting position as if it wasn't just stretched out or put under certain levels of tension that to you or I would be considered and or metaphorically discomforting and unwanted and undesired. But it's in that place where we get to then express resilience and actually leap and or bounce back to where we know God has created us to be. So you guys, I hope that is encouraging to you. I appreciate you tuning in today. If it's your first time, hey, as always, in order for me to grow this podcast, if you would be so willing to leave a review, follow, and leave a comment in the review, would be amazing. I'd be so immensely appreciative of that. And as always, hey, I put out a weekly email simply to help you build mindset mastery, to help you have a weekly consistent encouragement as you begin your week, as well as if you are maybe in a position where you're like, I'm struggling, I'm stuck, and I want to break the barrier. I'm not sure where I need to go. I feel like I'm under an immense amount of tension and I want to continue to build or learn how to build resilience. Maybe it's in your business, maybe it's in your, it could be in a relationship, it could be many different things. However, shoot me a call, sign up for one of my free coaching calls. I would love to walk you through, listen to where you're at, and maybe help provide you the encouragement you need to be resilient. Hey, as always, you guys, Coach Velasquez here with the Mindset Mastery Podcast. I appreciate you, and we will see you on the other side. Peace.
God forbid you are sitting in this place saying, I don't care about legacy. You need to care about it because somebody's got to live in the life you have. You are passing something down whether you want to or not.